All right, I'm back. You are tuned into Traders Nation. My pleasure to have with us here today book author Charles Jacobs, authored Management Rewired, Why Feedback Doesn't Work, and Other Surprising Lessons from the Latest Brain Science. Charles, welcome to Traders Nation. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Good, good. Listen, Charles, what do you mean by brain science is turning management on its head?
Well, it actually has two meanings. The first meaning is that what we're learning from brain science is completely changing the way we think about what we need to do as managers. The second piece of it is that literally what it's making us do is pay attention to what's going on in people's heads.
Sure. All right. How can we do that? I mean, and let's face it, not everybody. Well, let me back up. First of all, management needs to, when they get together, can they really trust what people are thinking and saying if they don't have it to bring it out to begin with in the forefront? So how can management understand this type of science?
Well, management doesn't really need to understand the science as much as they need to just understand a couple of things that we can pull out of the science, like the fact that we all create our own version of the world, and our versions differ from one another. So when we think about what we're going to do, we have to take into account how other people will see what we do.
Okay.
So when they take that into their minds, then hopefully that changes the way they interact with people.
Okay, all right. Is there anything really new here that you've discovered, or what, as far as the book is concerned? I mean, we all work in different ways, don't we? And we just got to be able to manage those ways, and even on a professional level, as a manager, what did you discover?
Well, one of the things that I discovered, Kurt, is that no, there isn't anything new.
Yeah.
Virtually everything that neuroscience has discovered was anticipated by the Greek philosophers. They discussed all these issues.
Yeah.
But what is new for us today is that we have good, hard scientific data. So we can talk to managers about what they need to do in terms of what's most important to them, the hard data. This isn't about theory. This isn't about model. This is about what we know as a fact works.
Right. What fundamental management practices have you seen brain science been proven in? What would be a good example of that?
Well, I think the best example, and the one that ended up as the subtitle of the book, is this whole issue of feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, we're raised in a society where we believe that feedback is the way that everybody's going to grow and develop and get better.
Yeah.
Yet what we actually find is that when we give people feedback that conflicts with their self-image, and that means anything that's at all negative, people take it as criticism, and they respond to it by rationalizing it away or discounting the source of the feedback.
Yeah.
And when it's the boss, that's an easy thing to do.
Yeah, don't they? Shouldn't they get over that though? I mean, isn't that what feedback's all about? Is that you're not looking for praise, but you're looking for areas of weakness, and that's what the feedback's all about, though, right? But shouldn't they put it in somebody else's? Shouldn't they put it in somebody else's hands if they're not willing to take the criticism?
Well, listen, only if we can disconnect the emotional part of our brain from the logical part.
Right.
And I think, as we've seen in the news recently, that's a pretty hard thing to do. So although we may know these things, being able to act on them is extremely difficult.
Yeah. So
the best thing to do for managers is to not count on people getting to the point where they can accept feedback, but instead to get people to self-feedback by asking them questions. When they self-feedback, at least you got the psychological dynamic working for you.
Yeah, how's that self-feedback work exactly?
Well, I think the best thing to do is when you see somebody, let's say they're giving a presentation and they make a mistake, rather than to say, hey, you made a mistake in that presentation, they'd be far more effective in terms of actually affecting behavioral change to say, how do you think you did? And to use a series of questions to get people to realize.
I see. All right. That's a great technique. All right. So back to, again, in my opinion, if somebody can't handle criticism or feedback, they need to be out of the way. Otherwise, don't put it up, because that's where you're going to get most of the problem. How many times, seriously, I mean, I've been in business since the 1980s, and on a rare occasion, people do call and compliment, but it's usually negative feedback in one way or another, whether they communicate by phone, fax, and now the digital age, email, it's usually negative feedback, okay? So if they can't handle feedback, they need to get rid of the feedback form, but most importantly, probably get somebody in there that can actually take action and look and study the feedback, even if it's negative.
Well, you know, I think there are really two messages in the book around feedback. One is how managers can handle it the best way so that it's going to work for them. But the second piece of it, and I go into great detail about this, Kurt, is that people need to be willing to accept feedback even when it's dissonant, even when it's contrary to what their view is, because that's the only way we learn. So as an employee, I should go out there and get the feedback and get rid of the emotions that are negative about it.
Right.
As a manager, I should try to get people to give feedback to themselves.
Well, listen, if that manager's got such a great idea, I always welcome the fact that if you can knock me off my great idea, I want to hear it, because maybe somebody's right. It's just that simple. All right, so armed with this knowledge then, okay, what are some of the ways that people can manage better?
Well, I think the first thing to keep in mind is this idea that people just want to control their own destinies. They don't want to be controlled by a manager.
Yeah.
And in fact, we find that we really can't control the people. So what you want to try to do is channel the natural inclination. And you do that through asking questions. You do that by getting people excited about the work they're doing and focused on the work they're doing.
Right.
You get it by the way that you design organizations, so they're not constantly trying to thwart what people are going to naturally do, but instead make the best use of it.
Right. All right. Like you mentioned earlier, a lot of news going on today, and no doubt about this. One thing is salary caps, big bonuses, okay? Is there truly an effective side to this financial, they say financial incentives, but you know what? To me, putting a cap on anything is no incentive. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, I don't think you can cap incentives. I believe in the free market. In fact, I think that if businesses operated more internally like a free market, they'd actually be far more successful.
Sure.
But I think that we have to be clear about what rewards do. Rewards don't motivate people. When we watch what happens in the brain, people are rewarded by the release of a neurotransmitter called dopamine. That neurotransmitter is released when they're engaged in the work they're doing, not when it's leading to the reward. That given, let's de-emphasize the whole issue of rewards. But in the case, for instance, of this $100 million bonus that apparently is going to be due at Citicorp,
yeah,
I don't think there's any choice. You've got to pay this guy. This guy will just walk out the door and go to a competitor.
Sure.
So I think we got to be really careful of kind of any hard and fast statements. But for most of us that aren't making $100 million a year, I think we need to get the focus on doing the work and then just give bonuses to people because they like them,
sure,
not because it's going to motivate them to work harder.
Charles, there's two things to that. One, I don't begrudge anybody's success, and I don't know why people do. Maybe it's because of their own life's failures. I don't know, okay? Somebody's worth $100 million. They're worth $100 million. If they're not, the company's not going to pay them. It's just that simple. That's free market principles, okay, to 101. All right, so let's talk about layoffs, because in business has been a tough economic time. Businesses are contracting, pulling in. In fact, some of them have to lay off, okay? So how do you motivate the remaining employees despite low morale?
Well, I think the first thing to keep in mind is that when we encounter anything that is adverse at all, a part of our brain called the amygdala starts pumping hormones into our system. The hormones literally slow down our brains and narrow our vision. So that means when we're feeling threatened or when we're fearful, we get stupider. So we don't want that to happen. And times like these, with people getting laid off around you, can really create that. The best thing to do with the people that remain, and that's really the biggest problem, is to make sure that they feel confident in their ability to do what they need to do and get them engaged in the business. Don't give them pizza parties like I've heard suggested or all those other little rewards. Instead, bring them together in a room and say to them, listen, times are tough. Here's our financial data. Tell me, what can we do to improve? And let them get engaged in helping build the business. That's what's going to get them excited, and that's what's going to contribute to the success of the business.
All right, so toss the pieces aside. Nobody needs pizzas in times of critical mass like this. They need direction. They need honesty is what I'm taking out of this, right?
Absolutely. And they need to be engaged. They need to feel that they can... Listen, we really feel under stress when we're not in control. When you put people in the mode where they can have some control over their future by having them engaged, they're going to be far more productive and it's going to be better for the business.
Right, and they're also going to feel that you actually need me, so I might be here tomorrow.
Absolutely. And it's not that people don't like pizza anymore and they don't like rewards. Give them pizza, give them rewards, but don't think it's going to make a difference in how they perform.
Give them pizza when you start getting back into the black. All right, Charles, where can we find a copy of Management Rewired?
You can find it anywhere. You can go to my website, managementrewired.com. There are links to all the online book publishers, and it should be in your local bookstore.
All right, there you have it. And where's the website at, Charles?
It's managementrewired.com. The title of the book with .com after it.
All right, managementrewired.com. Head on over there today. And also, too, if you want to, support your local bookstore. The guy in the corner, he needs your business, too. Wherever you can get a copy, a fine copy indeed, of Management Rewired, Why Feedback Doesn't Work, and other surprising lessons from the latest brain science. Charles Jacobs with us here today. Charles, thanks for being on the show.
Good. Thanks so much for having me.
You're more than welcome. Charles Jacobs, folks. And Management Rewired is the name of the book. Okay, head out today and get a copy of it.